So we're now going to learn about the impact of Chasidus' understanding of Modeh on the second level and layer of Torah, which is called Remez. And we are on page
69.
69, thank you. Chapter 13. Let's continue. Just as in this pshat of Modeh, ein Chasidus mosifa oit perush. Chasidus doesn't add an additional commentary, an additional explanation. Noisev ala perush haposhit, in addition to the simple text shaharei. Gam al Chasidus haperush the Modeh kipshutai, even according to Chasidus, the simple meaning of Modeh, it's giving thanks that the soul has been returned. So what does Chasidus do to the simple text? It clarifies, it illuminates it, and it brightens it, it clarifies it. By the very same explanation and interpretation that the Pshat gives, Chasidus illuminates that. Al Yidei Hakdoshoso Mahi Nishmosei. Like I told you yesterday, by emphasizing what is, the word Mahi is in bold, Mahi Nishmosei, what is a soul, Chayusai, what is its vitality, Shal Yehudi of a Jew, what makes a Jew tick. And when we say Modeh, the question is, what is a Jew giving thanks for? Is it giving thanks for being able to make more money during the day, eating more, sleeping more, helping more? What exactly am I giving thanks for? So Kain hu bechelik Remez. Now the Rebbe turns to the section of Torah called the Remez, hinting, alluding to. Drush, and so too regarding this part of Torah called the homiletic, the sermonizing, the Drush, the Hasid, and the esoteric and the Kabbalistic. Sheba Modeh within the Modeh. Chasidus me'ira u'me'vira. That Chasidus illuminates and brightens as a perushim eila atzmi, those very interpretations. Whatever Sod sees in Modeh, as we explained earlier last week, that Sod explains what? The concept of Zoe Malchus, the Yesod Malchus, for example. So that will be illuminated through Chasidus. Now now he goes into this was an introductory paragraph, and now he goes into the meat and the potatoes. We learned earlier, what does Remez, how does the level of Torah called Remez see Modeh? We learned it alludes to the resurrection of the dead. The Lihabiyah Shel Chasidus, nothing to do with Chasidus. The very fact that we wake up in the morning and the Gemara says it's the 60th of death, so it's a miniature resurrection that we experience each morning. So this is what Modeh alludes to. The Rebbe says, seemingly, he's like questioning now, seemingly, this is a very far off, distant hint. Why? In addition to the fact that death is only 1/60th of death, that sleep is only 1/60th of death, and it's not actual death. You're breathing at night. So what do you mean it's resurrection of the dead? No, it's not. So the Rebbe says that the whole idea of it referring to you giving thanks because you were resurrected from the dead at night, it's a distant hint. It's because literally it's not that way. I was not dead at night. I was very asleep, I didn't know where I am, but I wasn't dead.
The Rebbe, the people today, they have sleep apnea and they have a machine, and the machine turns on when the person doesn't breathe. There is something to this 160th. I mean, I know my stepfather, he cannot go to sleep without this machine. He ends up in the hospital.
You are talking to someone who is the biggest believer in the sleep machine, because I use one, and I have resurrection of the dead in this way every morning. However, what we're saying, Yoini, is when you say Tchias HaMesim, it's not Mesim. Your stepfather, myself, and the thousands and millions of others of people who use a sleep machine are alive. No one. It's uncomfortable. You choke up, and you all kinds of issues, but you're alive. So the Rebbe is saying, when you say that you're giving thanks to Hashem for resurrecting you from the dead, it's not true. You weren't dead. The point is saying, so that's why we say it's not literal. It's a remez. It alludes to it. It hints to it. So the Rebbe says even the idea that it hints to it, it's a far stretch. That's his point. Let's continue. The concept that the soul is restored to the body after sleeping is regarding the connection, the kesher between soul and body. What is the novelty of the resurrection of the dead when Mashiach will come? It'll be not in the connection between soul and body, but it'll be in soul itself and in body in itself. He explains. Before the resurrection, what will be left of the body once the body is interred? Rak etzem luz bilvad. Only what's called a bone, a little bone that's called luz, the luz bone. The body deteriorates, rots in the earth, and what's left, which is beyond rotting and deteriorating, is the luz. So that's what remains. From this we understand, shegam b'nishmasei, also regarding a person's soul, shahaneshama v'aguf, top of 171 of 71. Hey bechlal be'erech shaykh zelazeh. We understand that there's a correlation and connection between soul and body. Yoshinu ikar, there'll be a major difference in the soul, because if you're saying that the soul departed from the body, and the body, all that was left was etzem luz, a luz bone. So it's understandable that when the soul and the body will join again, once there's the resurrection, the soul will have gone through a transformation in its own right. It left the body, and now it comes back to the body. And during the time of the resurrection, the sages say, Chazal say, Yibonem etzem ze guf shalim. From this loose bone, an entire body will be built, constructed from the loose bone. Amazing. An amazing idea. Right? An amazing idea to think that this is the way you have the etzem loose bone that has an impact on everything else. And he says, and so too also the neshama, it'll experience many things until it is constructed, in quotes, and enters begufay, the person's body. Therefore, since this is what's going to take place when there'll be the actual resurrection of the dead, Remez, the hint, when the soul is restored at the time of the resurrection of the dead, it is only what? A faint representation. It's a siman. It's not literal, Moshe. It's a simon. Just, right? So the Rebbe is saying that this idea that the resurrection of the dead and that restoration of the soul in the morning, getting up, is me'ain, the Tchias HaMesim is a faint representation. But this next paragraph, comes along Chasidus and explains. Also, even when the soul is restored, the novelty is it isn't only about the connection of soul to body, but in the very body and in the very soul, there is a specialty and a reason to thank. Chazal say every morning a person becomes a Bria Chadasha, a new creation. What do you mean? I was here at night, I went to sleep, I didn't die. Am I Chadash this morning? I feel like Chadash, but I'm not Chadash. I'm not new. And when Chazal say, when Chazal say, Bria Chadosha, a new Chiddush, it means Mamish, a Chiddush Mamish. This is the age-old principle that the Baal Shem Tov teaches based on basic Jewish belief. Every moment, creation is recreated. Renewed creation. One second, Isser. Just as when there was the act of creation during the first 6 days of the Bria, so too every moment that we live and experience, it's a new creation. Let me just finish the paragraph. Ella, nevertheless, the morning restoration of soul is reminiscent. It alludes to, it hints to the resurrection of the dead. Because this concept of creation being renewed constantly from nothing to something, who b'chol boker dafkets every single morning. In other words, it's true, now it's already later in the day for all of us. Nevertheless, the first moment we woke up, at that very moment we experienced openly yesh b'yayin. We were asleep. So from the perspective of our sleep state, we were sleeping, and then we wake up and our eyes open. We're alive. We're here. It's yesh b'yayin. Yes, Isser, you wanted to say something.
I just wanted to say there's a very similar language and theme, which is echoed in one of his commentary, the Kedushas Levi commentary on Megillas Eicha. If people want to look it up, it starts Hashivenu Hashem Elecha.
Thank you.
Where he says, Kol HaNeshama Tehalka, Neshama and Neshima are the same. That with every breath we are renewed. Kol HaNeshima, every breath.
Yes, and I think about that comment very often because my mother, blessed memory, medically that became ill and passed on because she couldn't breathe. The doctor told me that her heart was as strong as a lion. I don't know if that's a good comparison. She had a very good heart, and she had very good everything. Everything was fine. There was only one problem: when you can't breathe because your lungs are, she had scoliosis, etc. So you could be as strong as you are, but if you can't breathe, you don't live. So every time I say Kol Hadeshama on each drop of breath, for me it's very real. So Yasher Koyach for that. It's a very powerful thought, and I do encourage you to think about Reb Levi Yitzchok's interpretation that Isser just shared, because it makes you really appreciate every moment you are able to breathe. But anyway, let's go back to the text. The Rebbe is saying here, Chasidus comes to illuminate the concept that both the body and the soul, independent of each other, Yonis, this is the kvetch here, this is the emphasis in this paragraph, independent of each other, are nitchadesh, are renewed every moment. Not just that there's the kesher between the soul and the body, the restoration of soul into the body, as we think about Avraham in classical Modeh, God, you returned my soul to the body, meaning there's a kesher between soul and body. That's true, but it's a lot deeper. Chasidus sees it a lot deeper. The very soul is a new soul. And the very body is a new body every morning. But wait a minute, I had this body last night. Thank you very much. That's then. When you get up in the morning, it's chadash because there is bria yesh mi'ayin, chidush. And that chidush is also for the soul. Let's continue, last paragraph. So the Rebbe goes back to his same line of thinking. How does one have this hergesh, this feeling? It's from the perspective only of Yechida. Why? For the perspective of the four other levels, since they themselves are already conditioned, because they are found in the world, nefesh basiya, in the world of action, ruach, in the world of formation, yitzira, neshama, in the world of bria, creation, v'chaya, in the world of atzilus. So each one already, Yoni, has a condition. In other words, Isser, in the world of yitzira formation, which we know from Kabbalah and Chasidus, is Chatzi tov, chatzi ra, half good, half bad, whatever that means, how you understand that in the spiritual terms, but that's its condition. If you bring all goodness, kulei tov, into Yitzira, Yitzira can't handle it. Yitzira has a breakdown. In other words, each world is defined by its DNA. So therefore, let's continue. Hare, what is felt by each of these realms, bipshitus, in the most simple way, without any innovation, top of 73, is what we call mitziot ha'olamot, the existence of world, the existence of independence, which is disputable. Meaning disputable. What?
Doesn't that mean reality?
Yes, it means reality, but it's reality with the emphasis as independent. When you have a condition, that condition is independent, meaning it has a structure and it has a definition and a limitation. So, Moshe's beautiful art studio is not a baseball field. And a baseball field is not an opera house, etc. Every locale and every mitziut, I don't care if it's from the holiest to the most unholy, has a set of parameters. That's just another way of saying the words mitziut ha'olam. Continue inside, please. And this feeling that existence does not have independence, and all of its existence, is constantly being renewed. From nothing and naught, absolute naught to something. For them, for the perspective of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and Echida, that's a Chiddush. It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. Because in my territory, there is existence and there is conditions. You come in already formed. You understand? So that's why In a baseball field, you don't have Moshe's art gallery because they're throwing balls and batting pitches and screaming and shouting and running and sliding. It's not a realm for art. On the contrary, art will get smashed there and not appreciated. So in other words, the realm of this Mitziyut is already formed with its own independent message. So over there, in each of these realms of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Nefesh is the world of action. What speaks there is action. Anything that's not action, it doesn't relate to it. Ruach is emotions. Shaba is intellect, right? So each one is defined. So the Rebbe says, therefore, they do not feel the ability. They don't have the ability to feel that the world is being created from new now. No, in their world, it's the world of action. I've been created to appreciate and to relate to action. Anything outside, I don't relate to. So what does that mean? That means that the world of action is not experiencing on its own Chidush Yesh Mi'ayin. Chidush Yesh Mi'ayin means everything is created from new now. That means there is no definition. There's no independence. It all begins every moment from new. Let's continue inside. Look. Only the level of Yechida, which is greater than the worlds, they feel in a most simple, basic way that all worlds are naught, the whole mitziyusim hu, and what consists of its being. Chidush Gober, it's a novelty completely. Shemeschadish Tomid B'chol Rega V'Rega. That's renewed every moment. Says the Rebbe, this is the way Chasidus illuminates the level of Modeh that's understood by Remez. Remez says it alludes to Tchias HaMesim. Every morning you have to give thanks to Hashem. Because God did for you a miniature resurrection. So the Chasidus says, you know what that resurrection consists of? Chidush Yesh Mi'ayin B'chol Rega V'Rega. That's what it alludes to. In other words, Chasidus says the Remez level of understanding Modeh really means the appreciation for Yesh Mi'ayin. And who gives that insight? And how are you able to feel that? If you live with Yechida. If you live with any other level of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and Chaya, action, emotions, intellect, and willpower, you're all limited to it. Achayis, let's continue, we have a few more minutes. Now he goes to the next level. How does Chasidus bring a new understanding of the homiletic interpretation of Modeh? And he says, remember, what was the homiletic, what was the medrash? That it's like a pikodin, a deposit that was given, that you give, and you have to get the deposit back, and all that. The prohibition of withholding of deposit because of that shalab mafkid b'liyabir shel Chasidus, the one who made the loan, right? He gave you a loan, and he gave you and you have to return it. The Rebbe says, seemingly, this idea that the Medrash says about Modeh has no understanding. Why? Since the borrower is obligated to you money, and he has no other way he has no way to repay it. When he'll have an opportunity, not to borrow, the one who gave the loan, when he'll have an opportunity to receive his money, why won't he use it? What's the difference between a loan and a stolen object? If Bezdin cannot get the thief to release the object that he stole, the law is that the person owning the item is allowed to tell someone else, go and buy that item from the thief, in order to return the gzela, the thievery, the robbery. So what's the point here? The point is that this is not the soul never belongs to us. The soul belongs to Hashem. So the same thing. Saying the comparison is not a good comparison. When someone who owns an item gives an item to someone else, you have that issue, right? You have the issue of hey, give me back the item. This item never belonged to us. It belongs to God. That's the question. That's why there's a question mark at the end. So Chasidus comes along Chasidus and explains Shekol mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs, Gama mitzvahs 75. Sheyesh aleim tam, even the mitzvahs which have a reason to them. Ikarim its primary focus is Ratzon el Yishal Mailam etam, God's will that transcends reason. Ki haratzon gam kishehu po betam, because the will of God, as it expresses itself through reason, it remains in its very core, which is the essence and will of God. That's why Gama mitzvahs the mishpatim, even the mitzvahs of what we call laws, we have to fulfill them because of God's command. Because God says, don't kill, don't steal. And we have to fulfill him with that Kabbalah soil, that acceptance of the yoke. Mitzvahs, the chukim, just as we do mitzvahs, the statutes of paraduma and shatnez, which doesn't give it a reason. Yet we accept it because God says so. So we have to do the mitzvahs that do make sense as well with the same commitment. Elo. Those mitzvahs which the Torah gives a reason, since the will of God also invested itself in reason, that's why the Torah calls them laws, understandable laws. Those fulfillment, the fulfillment of those mitzvahs have to be also from the perspective of logic and reason, but not limited to that. Top of 77. And since all mitzvahs, what are they? The will of God. Just as regarding God, we can't say God is God because through him we fulfill a certain other purpose. God forbid to say that. That's heresy. God is God. Now he becomes God. You know why? Because he helped me. Let me finish the paragraph, please. Ken God mitzvosov. So too, just as it's true regarding God, it's also true about his mitzvahs. Einam b'shvil eza tachlis acheres. Our mitzvahs are not for any other purpose. Kiyim kol tachlisam hu hei matzmam. Their purpose is that itself. Over the Gaelin Yonenu, so taking it back to our subject matter, mitzvahs hashavas pikot, returning the deposit. Matoras ha-mitzvah einerak b'shvil toivas ha-mafkid. Returning of the mitzvah isn't only for the purpose of the mafkid, of the depositor, sheyuchzer loim imoyne b'shleimos, that he should get back his complete money that he loaned, that he gave, el hashava atzma, the very restoration itself, hi hamatorah v'atachlis. There is the act of restoration, and then there is the result of restoration. And what Chasidus says is, It's the act of restoration that we're focusing on. The fact that you get back the money is extra credit. The act, in other words, the act is significant. And that's why when it comes to a loan, if a person shows that he's trying to restore, to give back the money, the person who gave the loan becomes very happy, even though he doesn't have yet his money or his full amount of money, because he sees you're working on it. It bothers you. You care about it. So too with the idea of the neshama. V'lochei, next paragraph. Gam kishamafkid chayiv le'momen. So too, when the depositor owes him money, ve'ein ha'machzor le'schayv, and doesn't return the debt, ein makom le'b'shiyakev es pekodoi. The law is there's no room to say, hold on to the deposit. Ki mechuyev hu b'mitzvah hashava. Okay? You're obligated in what we call the mitzvah of restoration. You see, that's what there's a mitzvah in hashava, in returning. The fact that someone's stiffing you is another issue, and you have to go to a bezdin and deal with it. No one's saying you shouldn't, but there is something to the restoration. Top of 79. V'amitis hergezeh. And this true feeling, hu mitzad yechida. Again, the Rebbe with his line of thinking, this is only from the perspective of yechida. Ki nefesh ruch neshama chaya, because the four levels, mekivish is kashrushim ba'boida, since their connection to the Creator, who can feel mitzad tziyurim hein. Again, is from their perspective and their idea, their tziyur, their image. How do they perceive God's will? The way it's filtered through them. Let's use those English words. Nefesh ruch neshama chaya velvel has a filter. It's called the filter of nefesh, the filter of ruach. So their perspective of God's will is through their lens. Conversely, Yechida, she'ein botzir, it has no filter. Umevukish liatzma. It doesn't have any independent will and desire and drive. Klau, at all. Vizkashrusa lelikusu bitzad elokus. Look, it's in bold. And its connection to God is because of God only. It feels the true essence of the will of God as it is in absolute simplicity. The sole purpose is the will itself, not anything other. So the Rebbe here too says the same idea as in the past paragraph, previous paragraph. That only from the perspective of Yechida, which is agendaless, has no independence, it's one and one thing only. God, Elokus. Only from that perspective do you understand that the restoration act itself is where it's at. And that's what we say Moidani. We're not saying Moidani as we're taught in Cheder. God gave you back the soul, so now he did you a big favor. Say thank you. The emphasis of which is, I'm alive now. No, the vart over here is, the act of resurrection is demonstrative of Yechida, of the will of God in its pure sense. And to conclude, this opens up for us the thinking, why do we do mitzvahs? Not for any other agenda, just because this is the Ratzon Hashem, the will of God. If you attach any type of even holy justification and reasoning, it's not pure 100%. And this needs to be, it's a training. It's a development of a refinement of character, of mind and heart, to the point where you realize this. Okay, Chevre, it's some heavy stuff, but we could understand it because we have a brain, Baruch Hashem, and a heart. So I want you to relook at it, please. Look at the English, and Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we will continue. Have a great day. Zayis with everyone. Bye.
Yes.
Amen.